Welcome to the Higher Power Podcast, presented by Higher Power Sports PT, the show dedicated to helping active individuals like you unlock your full potential through expert insights on injury prevention, performance enhancement, and recovery. Kurt Kessler is a board-certified specialist in sports physical therapy and an athletic trainer. In each episode, he and his guests bring you the latest evidence-based strategies to help you move better, feel stronger, and stay injury-free. Let's learn together.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Higher Powered Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about how to recover like a pro. Now, when you hear that, I bet your mind goes to all these high-tech, expensive gadgets that the pros have access to. You might think, I can't recover like a pro because I don't have millions of dollars, and that's not entirely true. I'll explain how to recover like a pro by just being yourself. Now, I had the opportunity to share this presentation with the Southern Columbia girls basketball team this summer, so shout out to them for being present and participating in it. I'm recording this podcast in mid-August. My team's just finished up the first week of their preseason. I know this episode won't be released until mid-season because of some other series that are already planned, but the information can be absorbed and applied starting anytime. It just feels more applicable because my teams are going through it right now. There are a lot of services that are going to advertise their methods and gadgets for recovery to drive business, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. We're all out here trying to do our best. People are trying to make money, but also give athletes the access to what they believe is the best opportunity for recovery. But my goal today is to bring you the best of my knowledge, the best of my understanding of how to maximize recovery, regardless of your budget. Now, this is a spin-off topic from episode 4 with Sarah Neal, who worked in the pro soccer setting for several years. On that episode, we talked about recovery, and as she calls them, the big rocks of recovery. So today, I'm going to take a deeper dive. Let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is what are the 4 pillars of recovery? And they are sleep, stress management, hydration, and nutrition. Let's start by talking about sleep. Now, who out there gets 8 hours of sleep every night? You have to ask yourself this question. But if you're an adult, probably not. If you're a student, maybe, depending. But the recommendation is, especially if you are an active athlete with a busy or full athletic schedule, the recommendation is 8 to 10 hours a night. Our bodies have a built-in recovery system, and it is called sleep. Sleep is what helps our bodies repair tissue. It's what helps refresh us. It's what helps restore our energy. Among a million other things, sleep is one of the best things that we can give our bodies. And you'll often find that people who don't get enough sleep will end up lacking in a lot of areas like performance or health or injury, whatever it may be. So prioritizing sleep is just super important. Now, depending on what you have going on or what your season of life is, 8 to 10 hours might not be feasible. If you're a new mother, probably not going to happen. Not everybody is going to be able to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night, but that's what the goal should be. And if I'm really looking at recovery as a whole, and especially these 4 pillars, sleep is one that I feel like just the priority of sleep and getting into good sleep habits, it might be one that yields the greatest benefit. Now, let's talk a little bit about sleep hygiene. A couple things to consider here. When we talk about sleep hygiene, it's really just the combination of factors that make an optimal sleep environment. So the biggest thing I would say is going to bed at a similar time each night. The body likes a predictable schedule. It likes to know when it can settle down. It likes to know when it has to wake up. So regulating your sleep schedule or your sleep time, your bedtime each night, your wake time each morning, The more regular that can be, the more efficient your sleep is going to be. Another big one is limiting screen time before bed. Now, if there's anything in here that I fall short on, this is probably one of the main ones. But limiting screen time 30 to 60 minutes before bed helps just to decrease that stimulus going into the brain and allows the brain to know, okay, now it is time to start transitioning to sleep mode. Along with that, avoiding long naps throughout the day is going to be important, because if you're taking longer naps during the day, it's going to be harder to get into that regular sleep pattern at night. I'm not saying you need to avoid all naps, but avoiding the longer ones during the middle of the day. Also, getting in a bedtime routine, whether it's, bedtime snack, brushing your teeth, reading, whatever. Getting in that routine can also help establish better habits in terms of allowing your body to gradually get into sleep mode. Then another one, and I see this a lot with young athletes, especially high school kids, limit your caffeine intake, especially, later hours when you're going to be going to bed. For some reason, our society is now obsessed with energy drinks, and I guess it's always been obsessed with coffee, but I feel like that's hitting at a younger age now. So just limiting your caffeine can also help your body regulate more consistent sleep. Think about it this way. If you plug in your phone at the end of the day, it charges up to 100% and it's ready to go for the next morning. So you can get a full day's use out of your phone. If you charge your phone to like 70% and started your day with your phone at 70%, would you expect it to last all the way through the day? Would you expect it to be able to keep up with whatever you need to use it for? Some people, yes, if you're not using your phone a whole lot. But the point is, you're not going to be able to use your phone as long if it doesn't have a full battery. The same thing applies with our bodies, especially in sports when we're demanding so much out of our bodies. If we're not addressing our batteries with sleep and we're waking up at 60%, 70%, 50%, it's going to be so much harder to get good performance out of our sports. The next one to talk about is stress management. Now, I go back and forth like sleep, stress management, is one more important than the other? The answer is probably no. They are all extremely important. I've just noticed that sleep and stress management are two areas that people aren't always mindful of and might offer the greatest room for improvement to start making some of these changes. So when we talk about stress management, my question is, what stresses you out? I want you to take a second and actually think about that. What stresses you out? Is it, if you're an adult, is it your work? Is it your kids? Is it trying to get your kids from here to there? All of these different stresses add up. If you're a student, is it relationships? Now, that applies to adults too, but I'm thinking more of the things that I see in the high school setting. Relationships, studying for tests, social media, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Like, what stresses you out? Once you identify that, you can start working towards reducing that. But unless you sit here and recognize where your sources of stress are coming from, it's going to be a lot harder to implement some of this. So I want you to come up with that answer for yourself. And the reason why this is important, the reason why we're talking about stress management is because the way that stress influences our performance and injury or injury prevention. So think of it this way. You have two different types of stresses. Internal stress, that is what you get anxious about. That's what you're feeling inside. That's, you had a bad day or whatever. Like all the stuff that you feel inside that feels like stress or anxiety or whatever it may be, that affects the system the same way that external stress does. External stress is exercise or, good sources of stress, the way that the body is still stressed. But stress is created equally, whether it's internal or external, whether it's good or bad, it all affects the system equally. So what happens is when we have a lot of internal stress, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm going to go exercise really hard so that I can get over it, or I can calm down, or whatever the case may be. But in reality, that is just adding stress to the system. And we all have what we call a stress capacity, or a threshold for stress. And once that starts to build up and it surpasses your stress capacity, or your threshold, the more time you spend above that, the more likely it is for an injury to happen, or pain to develop, or for our bodies to start talking to us a little bit in a negative way. So that's why reducing stress is so important for, one, preventing injuries so that we're not pushing past that threshold time and time again, and so that it can lessen the burden on the system so that it can recover more efficiently. What I like to do as just a de-stressing exercise is what I call 90-90 diaphragmatic breathing. So the 90-90 refers to our leg position. So how you set this up is you lie flat on your back. I like to put heels up on the couch so that your calf and your feet are supported on the couch. Your back is on the floor. And then all you're going to do is I put hands on the bottom of my rib cage and try to draw my breath down so that my ribs are expanding in all directions equally, not breathing up into our necks, not breathing so that our belly is sticking out, but just so that the rib cage can expand in all directions nice and easy, and then breathe out through the mouth. Why I like this so much is this is a really simple way to reset the nervous system. It's a really great way to bring stress levels down. It's a really great way to focus. And as we'll talk about in a second, I've even had people who go into this position, get relaxed, and then go into some mindfulness or prayer or meditation or whatever as the next thing. So anybody who listens to this podcast or any of the shows on this knows that I'm a very spiritual person. So for me, prayer is something that can help with my stress management. When I give my concerns, when I give my stress to God, that helps me to regulate my stress, helps me to kind of take it off my plate a little bit. Whether that's you or not, that's for you to answer. But regardless of what you believe, you can still practice this in the form of mindfulness. So there are apps, free apps, that you can tap into, whether that's journaling or breathing techniques. Apple Watches have a mindfulness app that just takes you through some guided breathing or meditation, however you like to do that. These are some super simple ways that you can start working on stress management and really not invest any resources at all. This is something that more and more pro athletes are tapping into, and you'll have to see for yourself, but just seeing the benefit that mindfulness and prayer and just getting that overall stress level down. Now, I'm going to run the risk of sounding like an old man here that's yelling at the clouds and telling the kids to get off my lawn. But I'm going to talk a little bit about social media. And I'm not here to say that it is bad. I'm not here to say that it's good. That's up to you to decide. I believe it's like anything else where it is a tool and it all depends on how you use it. You can use social media to do great things. You can also use social media to do very terrible things. But understanding what it does is going to be important for how you use it. So, for example, there is a reason why Facebook and Instagram have had to pay out so many millions of dollars in lawsuits because of what their apps have done to the mental health of children, and why some of these parameters are now in place, because it has been shown to have very harmful effects. Now, when you're on social media, if you're on Instagram, you're going to see two different things. One thing is you're going to see a bunch of businesses that are going to tell you that the thing that they are selling, the thing that they are promoting, is the one thing that you don't have, and the one thing that you need to accomplish X, Y, and Z. The one thing that you need to accomplish this lifestyle, the one thing that you need to fill in all your gaps, the one thing that you need to become a better athlete. And that's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that what you have is not good enough and that you need their product to become good enough. And I'm a business, I am on Instagram, and I'm also very particular about my messaging to try to avoid that. But you will see it. The other thing about social media is that just realize that what you are seeing is a highlight reel of the top 2% of everybody's life. I'm a parent. I have a 3.5-year-old and a 7-month-old, and I have never once posted any videos of them screaming and crying and misbehaving and tearing up our house and whatever, because nobody wants to see that. Everybody wants to see, oh, this person went on vacation to the beach and this person won this award and this person whatever. It is just a highlight reel of the best 2% of your day, the best 2% of your week, the best 2% of your vacation, whatever. It does not show all the mess that is in our lives that we don't record. Nobody puts out the worst part of their day. Nobody puts out when they're stressed out. Nobody puts out when they're having a mental breakdown. So what this does is it creates this idea that everybody else's life is better than mine. Everybody else has it figured out, and why can't I? But when you understand that, okay, this person just put this great picture or video out from their vacation, like, good for them. They had a good couple seconds in that moment. They had a nice vacation, whatever it may be, but it doesn't tell the whole story of their life and what they're experiencing and the struggles that we are all going through. So when you're consuming this stuff, just be mindful that what you're seeing is just a highlight reel. It is not reality. And the last thing under this category, there are professionals that can help you if all of these things that I suggested are not doing the trick for you. There are professionals like sports psychologists, mental health coaches, guidance counselors at school that have more training and that can help guide you through some of these challenges that you're facing. And there's no shame. There's no shame in that. I want you to know that. I've done counseling in the past to help with my stress management, and it worked. Just know that there are people out there that are able to help. You don't have to go through this alone. All right, the next topic, I'm going to talk about hydration here. These next two are going to be more just general recommendations. If you need more specific recommendations, I will direct you to some of the best people I know for that. But as far as hydration goes, you want to make sure that you're consuming fluids consistently throughout the day. What I mean by that is it is better to take small sips of water or small sips of whatever throughout the day opposed to just drinking like a gallon straight and then nothing else for like 5 hours. The more consistent you can be, the more easy that hydration level is going to stay regulated, stay topped off, as opposed to really hydrated and then not, really hydrated and then not. When we're talking about performance, we want to try to keep that as consistent as possible. Just some basic guidelines here. In the morning, taking in 8 to 16 ounces. And then when you're about 2 or 3 hours before you play your game or practice or an intense workout, you're looking at like 16 to 24 ounces of fluids. 15 to 30 minutes before you start playing, roughly 8 ounces. And then while you're playing, practicing, working out, you're looking at somewhere between 4 and 8 ounces every 20 minutes. I recommend light sports drinks as opposed to just like super heavy Gatorade. But I will say that Gatorade is formulated on specific calculations for sweat loss. And if you need more guidance on that, I can direct you to some people who would know even more than I do. But you want to, I'm looking at light sports drinks for anything that's beyond 60 to 90 minutes in duration. If it's really hot outside, or if you have like multiple events or multiple games or practices throughout the day, you want to make sure that you are replacing some of the fluids that you're losing, or all of the fluids that you're losing. I love the Gatorade posters that you can see in some athletic training rooms where it's like sweat is more than just water, or it'll say taste your sweat, because when you taste it, it's a little bit salty, because that is what we're losing. That's part of the electrolytes that we're losing that sports drinks help to replace. I would not recommend sports drinks for like if you're doing super light workouts or just for, everyday drinking. I wouldn't drink tons of that because some of the sugar content is going to add up. But I personally really like Liquid IV. There's Noon is a brand. They're little tablets you drop in. Gatorade does sell packets, and then obviously, Gatorade, Powerade, Body Armor, all those drinks. Here's another big one. I touched on this a little bit already. Avoiding energy drinks or drinks with high sugar or caffeine. Not all liquids are created equal in terms of hydration. So you look at coffee or soda or, something that's just super sugary. That's not going to yield the same hydration benefits that you're looking for if you're trying to get improved performance. I could go on for hours about energy drinks, but just avoid them if you're trying to work out and stay hydrated. The last thing I'll talk about under this category is just your thirst. So if you are thirsty, you are already dehydrated. That is our body's natural mechanism for letting us know that we need to consume fluids. So if you're already thirsty, you are already dehydrated. So trying to stay on top of that. The other thing we're looking for is looking at the color of your pee. What this tells us is how hydrated we are. If you look and your pee is like crystal clear, it looks like water, that means you're a little bit overhydrated. If you're peeing and you're like dark yellow, orange, brown, yuck, that's telling us that you're super dehydrated. What you're looking for is like a light yellow color, somewhere around like a nice lemonade or something. That's the area that you want to be in. And then the last topic here is nutrition. This, I'll go into some general stuff, but if you really want to optimize your nutrition, or if you have further questions or concerns, consulting with a dietitian who specializes in sports and athletics would be the way to go. You can also refer back a little bit to episodes 9 and 10 on this podcast feed with my conversations with Angie Dye. The general recommendation is balanced meals, and this could really be said for anybody, but especially athletes. Balanced meals, 3 or 4 meals a day. The reason I have the 4 in there is because with athletes who are training hard, with athletes who are in season, a 4th meal might be appropriate in order to make sure that you are getting the calories that you need to avoid breakdown in muscle or weight loss or whatever it may be. When you're looking at like a pregame meal, you're looking 2 to 3 hours before competition or that intense workout or whatever the case may be. A little bit higher in carbohydrates because that is the fuel that is going to power your exercise. And then combining that with moderate protein levels. After exercise, you should be replenishing those energy stores within 30 to 60 minutes. Some people will say in the first 30 minutes, but as Angie said, a gradually closing window. It doesn't just slam shut, but a gradually closing window when to optimize your energy replacement. So a snack with carbohydrates and protein afterwards. Another big thing, and you see this in high school setting a lot, don't skip meals. Some kids will skip breakfast, or they'll show up for morning practice and, have only eaten just like a granola bar or something like that. Don't skip meals. You want to keep your body consistently fueled. Just the same as we talked about with hydration, you don't necessarily want to go into these like super hungry, super full, super hungry, super full if you're trying to optimize just that regular energy store throughout your day and throughout competition. Also looking at healthy snacks between meals. The word healthy is relative, but basically people know that eating a half a bag of chips before practice is probably not going to go super well. Trying to give yourself calories from good quality sources. You might be asking why? Why does this matter? Well, I talked about it a little bit already, but the carbs are going to give you energy. That's our body's most consumable or most efficient way of taking energy from food and putting it right back into our bodies, right back into performance, especially some of those more easily digestible carbohydrates for competition. Protein, we talk about for recovery because of its role in helping to repair and rebuild muscle. And then healthy fats, I lump this in kind of a big umbrella, but they are very important because they help essential body functions. They also help as an alternate source of energy because they're very dense with energy, but making sure that they're coming from healthier sources is going to make a difference than if we're not making good choices for what we're fueling our bodies with. I can't stress this enough. Sleep, stress management, hydration, and nutrition. Those are the 4 things that are going to help you maximize your recovery. Now you might say, oh, well, what about all of these fancy gadgets? What about the compression boots? What about the ice baths? What about this, that, and the other thing? Those things are all great. They are a tool to help you feel better. They're a tool to help you recover. If you go back to episode 4 with Sarah Neal, she goes on this perfect rant of telling us that these 4 things, these big rocks of recovery, these pillars of recovery that I outlined today, they will take you 95, 97% of the way to optimize your recovery. The other things will take you about 3%. And if you're doing all of these fancy extra things, but not hitting these 4 pillars, it's really not going to make a ton of difference for you. And I hate to say that because some people really believe in these. And again, they work perfectly fine. They are a tool, but they are not the answer. These 4 things are all things that are natural to our body. They're natural to our body systems. And if you do them, they can even make all these extra things even more effective. So I just want to kind of drive the point home that if you're not doing these things, all the other stuff might not even matter because you're still going to be falling short in one of these areas. And the last thing, don't expect to be perfect in all 4 of these categories. I'm not, nobody is, but I think just being aware of what is good practice, being aware of what things can help you in these different categories are going to at least keep it on your radar so that you can know how to get the most out of your body. If you have any questions or any follow-up concerns or whatever on anything that I presented about today, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is in the show notes, or you can connect with me on Instagram at Higher Power Sports PT. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Higher Powered Podcast, presented by Higher Powered Sports PT. We hope you gained valuable insights on how to stay strong, move better, and prevent injury, all backed by expert knowledge in sports physical therapy and athletic training. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us bring more evidence-based tips and strategies to active individuals just like you. For more resources or to connect with us, head over to hpsportspt.com. That's hpsportspt.com. Remember, you've got the power to perform at your best. Keep training smarter, recovering faster, and living stronger. Just a reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It should not be considered medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your health or treatment plan. Thanks for tuning in. We hope to see you next time on the Higher Powered Podcast.